the awakening stop. Right now, in this exact moment, something extraordinary is happening. Your heart is beating, your lungs are filling with air, and somewhere deep inside you, beneath all the noise, beneath all the doing, beneath everything you think you know about yourself, there's a quiet voice that's been whispering the same question for years. Is this really all there is? You've achieved things. You've survived things. You've built a life that looks, from the outside, perfectly acceptable. And yet, there's this feeling, this persistent, nagging, sometimes overwhelming sense that you're living at maybe 30% of your actual capacity. That the person you see in the mirror each morning is a smaller, dimmer version of who you actually are. What if I told you that feeling isn't a problem? What if it's the most intelligent signal your soul has ever sent you? What if you're not broken? You're just ready? Here's what nobody tells you about life. We're all walking around thinking we inhabit the same reality, same world, same rules, same limitations. But that's the greatest illusion ever sold. The truth, the real truth that changes everything once you see it, is that there are infinite realities, infinite ways of experiencing this exact same moment, all available to you right now. The difference between someone who wakes up exhausted, dreading their day, feeling like life is something that happens to them versus someone who wakes up energized, curious, feeling like they're dancing with existence itself. It's not their circumstances. It's not their bank account. It's not even their relationships. It's their level of consciousness. Think of consciousness like a magnificent hotel with 7 floors. Most people are born in the basement, live their entire lives in the basement, and leave from the basement, never knowing there were 6 other floors above them with completely different views, completely different possibilities, completely different versions of reality itself. And here's the thing. You've felt it, haven't you? In those rare, lucid moments when everything gets quiet, you've sensed there must be something more, a different way of being, a higher perspective. That longing isn't wishful thinking. It's not escapism. It's your consciousness recognizing it's ready to expand beyond the floor it's been living on. You didn't find this by accident. Something in you, something wiser than your thinking mind, guided you here. And by the time you've received everything that's about to be shared, you'll understand exactly why. Today, you're going to receive the complete map, the 7 levels of consciousness, the hidden architecture of your own inner world, and more importantly, the precise path that allows you to move deliberately, permanently, into the levels where life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that flows through you. If even one of these levels resonates with where you are right now, the shift that begins here has the potential to alter everything, not just your circumstances, not just your mood, the entire trajectory of your human experience. Welcome, my friend. Let's begin. The great illusion. We exist beneath a spell, a collective hypnosis so complete, so persuasive, that most people never question it for a single moment of their entire lives. The spell is this: that reality is fixed, that the world is what it is, that some people are lucky and others aren't, that some people have the magic touch and you don't, that life is fundamentally a random series of events you must learn to endure, manage, or if you're fortunate, occasionally enjoy. But here's what the sages, the mystics, the truly awakened beings throughout history have always known. Reality isn't fixed. It's fluid. It's responsive. And the version of reality you experience is entirely determined by the level of consciousness from which you're perceiving it. Imagine consciousness as a towering structure 7 stories high, each floor offering a completely different view of the same landscape. From the basement, where most of humanity spends their existence, the walls are thick. The windows are small. Fear is the air you breathe. And life appears to be an endless battle against forces you can't control. Other people, the economy, fate, your past, your genetics, the universe itself. From those lower floors, it's genuinely impossible to perceive what's visible from the upper terraces, the expansive landscapes, the infinite possibilities, the realization that you're not a victim of the game. You're the one playing it. But you've felt the pull upward, haven't you? In your most honest moments, you've sensed there's a different relationship with reality available, a way of being that doesn't involve this constant struggle, this exhausting resistance, this feeling of pushing a boulder uphill every single day. That sensing isn't fantasy. It's evidence. Evidence that you're ready to see the map, ready to understand the staircase, ready to climb. This knowledge has been called forbidden, not because it's dangerous, but because it restores something the world would prefer you forget. Your sovereignty, your power, the truth that you are not permanently stuck on your current floor. The staircase has always been there, you just couldn't see it yet. But you're about to. Chapter 1. The basement, the first level. Let's start at the bottom, not because it's pleasant, but because real transformation requires brutal honesty about where we actually stand. You can't navigate to a destination if you lie to yourself about your starting point. For the overwhelming majority of human beings, the default setting, the place where the journey begins, is what we'll call the basement floor. This is the first level of consciousness, and its name is simple: the victim. Now, before you recoil and say, "Not me, I'm not a victim," let me be clear. This isn't about your moral character. This isn't about weakness. In fact, victim consciousness is one of the most sophisticated survival mechanisms the human mind has ever created. It's not a failure, it's a hiding place. But it is a prison. The defining characteristic of this level is that life happens to you. You are the object, not the subject. Reality is an external force, unpredictable, often cruel, occasionally generous. And you are a small, fragile thing at its mercy. Events occur, circumstances change, people behave in certain ways, and you react. You cope, you survive, but you don't create, you don't command, you endure. This perception feels completely real when you're in it. It doesn't feel like a perspective, it feels like the truth. And that's precisely what makes it so difficult to escape. The victim's prison is held together by 3 main pillars. And if you recognize even one of these in your own life, pay attention, because recognition is the first crack in the wall. The first pillar, the blame machine. The victim's mind is a masterpiece of storytelling. It constructs elaborate, convincing narratives in which you are always the noble protagonist, and the world is always the antagonist. Something out there is always responsible for what's happening in here. If there's scarcity in your life, it's because of the economy, the system, your boss, your parents who didn't give you the right opportunities, the government, society, anything and anyone except the one person who holds the pen to your story. If your relationships keep falling apart, it's because people are selfish. They're narcissists. They don't understand you. They can't commit. They're emotionally unavailable. It's never about the patterns you keep choosing, never about the unhealed wounds you keep projecting. If your health is deteriorating, it's genetics. It's the environment. It's the stress others put on you. It's bad luck. It's anything but the daily choices you've been making for years. The victim's mind doesn't do this maliciously. It does it protectively. Because blame offers something incredibly seductive: moral superiority. When you blame, you get to be right. You get to be the good one in a bad world. Your suffering becomes evidence of your virtue. But here's what blame actually costs you: your power. Every single time you point outside yourself and say, "That's why my life is this way," you are simultaneously declaring, "And therefore, I can't change it." Because if the cause is out there, the solution must be out there too. Which means you're stuck, waiting, hoping, resenting the very forces you need to set you free. You become a prisoner who's handed the keys to your own cell to the jailer. The individual who begins to awaken learns to read blame like a compass. When the impulse to blame rises up, and it will rise up over and over, it's not something to feel guilty about. It's simply a signal, a notification from your consciousness saying, "Hey, you've dropped down to the first floor again. Time to climb." And the question that begins to climb is this: how have I contributed to creating or allowing this situation? Not to punish yourself, not to take on false guilt, but to locate the only point in the entire system where you actually have control: yourself. The second pillar, the language of powerlessness. Listen to someone living in victim consciousness for 5 minutes, and you'll hear a very specific dialect, a language made almost entirely of complaints. "I'm so exhausted. This is impossible. I'll never find the right person. Nothing ever works out for me. Why does this always happen to me?" Complaint isn't just description. It's creation. It's a prayer. Every time you complain, you're using the creative power of your words. And yes, your words have creative power to reinforce and solidify the exact reality you claim you don't want. Complaining is also a form of social bonding at this level. People gather in what I call complaint circles. They meet for coffee and compete over whose life is harder, whose boss is worse, whose partner is more difficult, whose luck is more cursed. And there's a strange comfort in it, isn't there? A sense of belonging. I'm not alone in my suffering. But it's a bond built on shared wounds, not shared strength. And over time, it doesn't heal you. It calcifies you. Here's what happens neurologically. Every repeated complaint literally rewires your brain. You're training your neural pathways to become experts at spotting problems, cataloging what's wrong, and dismissing solutions. You become a professional pessimist, an Olympic-level negativity athlete. The awakening individual becomes a guardian of their language, not through toxic positivity, pretending everything is fine when it's not, but through agency, talking about challenges from a place of, "This is happening, and here's what I'm going to do about it," rather than, "This is happening to me, and there's nothing I can do." The third pillar, the emotional climate. If you were to walk into the basement floor of consciousness and feel the air, it would be thick with two emotions: apathy and resentment. Apathy is the feeling of having given up. It's the exhaustion that comes from trying to change things through force, through willpower, through sheer desperate effort, and watching those efforts fail over and over. Eventually, you stop trying. You go numb. What's the point? Nothing I do matters anyway. Resentment is apathy's twin. It's the slow-burning anger that accumulates when you believe the world owes you something and refuses to deliver. When you believe you deserve better, but don't have the power to create it. Resentment is toxic. It corrodes you from the inside. It affects your health, your relationships, your capacity for joy, and yet people stay here, sometimes for decades, sometimes for entire lifetimes. Why? Because, as painful as it is, the victim role offers something the ego finds irresistible: complete freedom from responsibility. If you're the victim, you don't have to take ownership of your life. You don't have to face the terrifying truth that the quality of your existence depends on the quality of your consciousness. You don't have to confront your own power, because power means responsibility, and responsibility means no more excuses. The victim role is a hiding place. It's where the soul conceals itself from its own magnitude, but even in the darkest basement, light finds a way through the cracks. The fractures in the wall. Sometimes something happens. A moment of cognitive dissonance. An experience that doesn't fit the victim's narrative. You meet someone who came from worse circumstances than yours and somehow built a life of genuine peace. You witness an unexpected act of kindness from someone you wrote off as selfish, or most commonly, the pain itself becomes unbearable. The suffering of staying in the cell finally exceeds the fear of stepping into the unknown. This is what's called hitting rock bottom. And it's not a tragedy. It's grace. It's your soul saying with thunderous clarity, there must be another way. The instant that question arises, genuinely arises, not as a passing thought, but as a desperate plea, the first crack appears in the prison wall. And through that crack, a new possibility enters. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, the power was never outside you at all. The first step out. The first step out of victim consciousness isn't complicated. It's not a mystical technique. It's not a 30-day challenge. It's a single choice. A choice that feels impossible until you make it, and then feels like the most obvious thing in the world. The choice is this: to take 100% responsibility for your life experience. Not blame turned inward, not guilt, not the delusion that you can control every external event, but something far more precise and powerful: the recognition that while you cannot control what happens, you can always control your response, your perception, your interpretation, the meaning you assign, the action you take next. This shift is immediately reflected in the questions you ask. The victim asks, "Why is this happening to me?" A question designed to locate blame and deepen helplessness. The awakening person asks, "What is this here to teach me? What part of myself is this inviting me to strengthen, heal, or transform?" One question keeps you stuck. The other sets you free. Here's the practice that catalyzes this transition. Get a journal, not your phone, an actual journal, and write down every area of your life where you feel like a victim, every major complaint, every story where you're the wronged innocent. For each one, with a kind of courage that actually changes lives, identify at least one way you've contributed to creating or allowing that situation, not to blame yourself, to locate the lever. Because the moment you identify your contribution, you found the only point in the entire system over which you have absolute control: yourself. And that, my friend, is the only point from which real change has ever been made. If something in this first level has resonated with you, if you've recognized yourself in the basement and felt the first stirrings of readiness to climb, I want you to do something. Leave the number 369 in the comments below. In the language of consciousness, 369 represents the divine sequence of awakening, the signal that something is beginning to shift. Let this community witness the moment you picked up the key. Chapter 2, The Warrior, the second level. Now let's talk about what happens when you make that choice, when you decide to stop being the effect and become the cause, when you refuse to remain passive and step into action. This is the second level of consciousness, and it's a monumental leap. Welcome to the floor of the warrior. The warrior is not a victim. The warrior has woken up to a fundamental truth, that life is not something that happens to you, it's something you can make happen. You stop waiting, you stop complaining, you stop blaming, and you start doing. This is the level of discipline, of willpower, of pushing through resistance, of no pain, no gain, of waking up at 5 a.m. even when your body screams for rest, of making the difficult call even when fear pulses through your veins, of refusing immediate gratification for long-term vision, and it works. The warrior gets results, external, tangible, measurable results. This is the consciousness that builds empires, that breaks records, that climbs mountains and launches businesses and transforms bodies and achieves things that seem impossible from the basement floor. From the victim's perspective, the warrior looks like a god, someone who's figured it out, someone who's won. And yet, despite all these achievements, the warrior is still in a prison. It's just a nicer one. A golden cage, but a cage nonetheless. Part 2. The Golden Cages, the Warrior's Shadow. Here's what nobody tells you about the warrior level. Here's the secret that keeps people trapped on the second floor for decades, sometimes entire lifetimes. The warrior's world is fundamentally dualistic. It's me versus the world. Me versus the obstacle, me versus the competition, me versus my own weakness. Everything is a battle, and battles, by definition, require enemies. The warrior can only rest when the battle is won. But life, being what it is, delivers an endless stream of battles. So rest becomes temporary, fragile, always shadowed by the anxiety of the next conflict lurking around the corner. The warrior's sense of worth is completely fused with performance. He is what he achieves. If he wins, he's a winner. If he fails, he's a failure. There's no separation between the person and the results. His entire identity rests on the scoreboard. This creates a life of relentless pressure. You must prove yourself again, and again, and again. The mountaintop is never enough because there's always another mountain. The finish line keeps moving. The goal posts shift the moment you reach them. The warrior believes the only path to success runs through struggle, through force, through grinding it out. He hasn't yet discovered the intelligence of surrender, of flow, of collaboration with something larger than his individual will. And here's what this does to the body. It keeps you in a permanent state of fight or flight activation. Your nervous system is constantly firing stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, chemicals designed by nature for short bursts of survival, not as the background music of your entire life. The result? chronic exhaustion. Burnout, the sacred disease of the warrior class. Your immune system weakens. Sleep becomes difficult. You're simultaneously wired and depleted. Your mind loses the capacity for long-term vision because all your neurological resources are redirected toward survival mode. You become brilliant at winning individual battles while slowly losing the war. And then one day, you reach the summit. You conquer the mountain you set out to climb. You stand at the peak, survey everything you've built, and discover something that shakes you to your core. Emptiness. The peace you were chasing wasn't at the top. It was supposed to be in the journey, but you never allowed yourself to be present for it. You were always focused on the next step, the next goal, the next enemy to defeat. This is the great tragedy of the warrior, winning the external game while losing connection to your own soul. And it's precisely in this moment of hollow victory that a choice emerges. You can find a bigger mountain, set a more ambitious goal. Tell yourself the next achievement will finally deliver the peace this one didn't. This is the path of escalating suffering. Or you can do something that requires more genuine courage than any battle you've ever fought. You can set down your weapons. You can sit with the weight of your exhaustion. You can feel the accumulated cost of all that striving. And you can ask the question that changes everything. What if there's another way? The practice of the awakening warrior. The practice that opens this transition isn't a new strategy. It's not a productivity hack. It's not another system for optimizing your output. It's an audit, an honest examination of where you've been applying force unnecessarily. Take your journal, yes, the same one, and write down every area of your life that feels like rowing against the current, every conflict you're sustaining out of habit or pride, every goal you're pursuing not because it genuinely matters to you, but because you think you should. Look at where you're hammering against resistance instead of looking for the path of least resistance. And then ask a different kind of question. Not, how do I defeat this? But what if this obstacle isn't an enemy to overpower? What if it's a door inviting me toward a route I haven't yet considered? This is the beginning of the third level, the moment the warrior starts to evolve beyond force and into intelligence. Chapter 3. The Architect. The third level. If the victim is the pawn and the warrior is the rook, moving with power but only in straight lines, then the third level is the queen, the master strategist, who sees the entire board and moves with precision, intention, and intelligence. Welcome to the consciousness of the achiever. This is the level modern civilization worships. This is what we're taught to aspire to from childhood. Get good grades, build a career, climb the ladder, accumulate achievements, prove your worth through external validation. And from the basement and second floor, the achiever looks like they've figured it all out. The achiever understands something the warrior doesn't, that the world isn't a battlefield to be conquered through sheer force. It's a system, and systems can be understood, optimized, engineered to produce specific, predictable results. The achiever is an architect of outcomes. The 3 pillars of achievement consciousness. First pillar, the power of the target. The warrior fights by instinct. The achiever acts with deliberate purpose. The central tool of this level is the goal. The achiever discovers what many self-help books try to teach, that the subconscious mind operates like a guided missile. It needs a clear target to mobilize its resources. Without one, energy scatters. With one, energy converges into a laser beam of focused capability. At this level, people master goal setting. They get specific. They measure progress. They create timelines and action plans. They transform vague desires into concrete, achievable outcomes. This is often where people first encounter manifestation principles, but they apply them mechanically. Vision boards, affirmations, visualization, all used as tools to program the mind toward external achievement. The what, the external goal, remains more important than the who, the person they're becoming, in the process. Second pillar, the currency of productivity. If the goal is the destination, productivity is the vehicle. The achiever becomes a master of time and energy management. Every hour has a purpose. Every action connects to an outcome. Every result is tracked, measured, optimized. This is the world of efficiency literature. The 80-20 principle. Time blocking, leverage, delegation, elimination of distraction. The achiever doesn't just work harder like the warrior, they work smarter. Life becomes an engineering project, a system to be optimized for maximum output. Third pillar, the engine of external validation. And here's where we arrive at the core, the fuel that drives the entire achiever engine. Beneath all the brilliance, beneath all the success, beneath the confident exterior, there's a wound. The belief that I am not enough as I am. The achiever's relentless pursuit isn't really about the achievements themselves. It's about what the achievements represent. Proof of worth, evidence of value, validation from the external world that, yes, you matter. Yes, you're significant. Yes, you're worthy of love and respect and belonging. Every goal reached, every accolade earned, every milestone hit is an attempt to silence the voice inside that whispers, "But are you sure you're enough?" The scorecard is entirely external. The title on your business card, the size of your house, the car you drive, the engagement on your social media, the admiration in other people's eyes when you tell them what you do. You live for the applause. And here's the trap. The applause is never quite loud enough, never quite sustained enough. There's always someone achieving more, always another level to reach, always another credential to earn. The hedonic treadmill, running faster and faster, achieving more and more, and somehow the finish line keeps receding into the distance. The golden cage, we shouldn't diminish this level. Achiever consciousness drives human progress. These are the people who build the companies, make the breakthroughs, create the systems that lift entire societies. From the basement, the achiever's life looks like paradise. But it's a gilded cage, and the bars, though beautiful, are still bars. The first bar, the when-then trap. The achiever lives in permanent residence in the future. Peace is always conditional, always dependent on the next accomplishment. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll relax when I hit the revenue target. I'll enjoy life when I retire. But when you finally reach the goal, the satisfaction lasts maybe a day, maybe a week if you're lucky. And then the anxiety of the next objective sets in. You can never rest here, never arrive, because the present moment is never the destination. It's always just another stepping stone to somewhere else. The second bar, the fear of stillness. The achiever becomes addicted to doing. Identity depends on continuous motion, constant productivity, perpetual progress. Rest isn't experienced as restoration. It feels like weakness, like wasted time, like falling behind. Silence terrifies the achiever because in silence you might be forced to encounter what all the doing has been constructed to avoid. The void, the emptiness, the quiet question of, who am I when I'm not achieving? The third bar, the loss of self. The achiever has identified so completely with roles and results that the essential self has been lost. You're not a human being anymore. You're a CEO, a doctor, an entrepreneur, a top performer. If someone stripped away your title, your function, your list of achievements, what would remain? Often, the answer is terrifying. I don't know. The soul, which longs for wholeness and authentic expression, eventually begins to feel suffocated, even in the most beautiful cage. The crisis of hollow success. The awakening of the achiever typically comes through one of three catalysts. The first is the moment of hollow success. You reach the big goal, the one you believed would finally bring lasting happiness, and discover a chilling emptiness instead. I have everything I thought I wanted, so why do I still feel incomplete? The second is collapse from exhaustion. The body, treated for years as merely an instrument of ambition, finally refuses to continue. Illness, burnout, complete depletion, the forced stop. The third is an uncontrollable external event, an economic crash, a betrayal, a loss that shatters the illusion of control and forces you to seek security that no external achievement can provide. When any of these occur, cracks appear in the gilded cage, and through those cracks, the achiever glimpses something they've never truly considered before. What if the quality of my inner state matters more than the size of my external achievements? The shift from doing to being. The awakening achiever begins a profound reorientation. Three fundamental shifts mark this transition. First, from identity rooted in doing to identity anchored in being. You start separating your sense of worth from your results. You begin to see successes and failures not as verdicts on who you are, but as temporary experiences moving through a consciousness far larger than any of them. Second, from external scorecard to internal compass. You stop measuring the value of your days by tasks completed or approval received. New questions emerge. Was I authentic today? Did I act with integrity? Did I experience peace? Was I kind? Was I present? The quality of your inner state becomes the only honest measure of a life well lived. Third, from destinations to vehicles. Goals stop being where fulfillment lives and become the medium through which growth occurs. The destination is no longer the point. The journey, the person you become along the way, becomes the treasure. The practice, the why audit. Here's the practice that opens this transition. For each significant goal currently driving your life, ask with unflinching honesty, why am I actually pursuing this? Strip away the surface answers. Keep asking why until you reach the root. I want to make $1 million. Why? So I can have security. Why do you need security? So I can feel safe. Why don't you feel safe now? Because I don't feel valuable unless I'm achieving. There it is, the wound driving the achievement. If the answer points toward ego, proven worth, earning approval, filling an internal void, the goal doesn't need to be abandoned, but it must be consciously reframed, aligned with service, connected to growth rather than validation, transformed from a desperate need into a genuine expression. Achiever consciousness represents the highest level the ego, operating as a separate entity, can reach through its own force. It's a stage of immense creative power. But its ultimate lesson is this: true mastery isn't building the most magnificent gilded cage. It's discovering the door was never locked, and the only approval that ever mattered was your own. Chapter 4. The Alchemist, the fourth level. Something profound happens when the achiever finally admits the hollow quality of their victory. When they stand on the summit of external success and feel, instead of triumph, a quiet desperation. In that moment, if they're brave enough to feel it fully rather than immediately seeking the next mountain, a pivot occurs, the most consequential pivot of the entire journey. They stop looking outward and turn inward. This is the crossing of the equator, the passage from the hemisphere of survival to the hemisphere of conscious creation. Welcome to the fourth level, the consciousness of intention, the revelation, reality, as mirror. In the first three levels, despite growing power, the foundational premise remains the same. We inhabit an external world that is solid, fixed, and real. Our job is to react to it, resist it, or manipulate it as skillfully as possible. At the fourth level, this premise dissolves entirely. The revelation arrives. The external world is a mirror, a reflection of your inner state. And with this understanding, the entire game transforms. It's no longer about extracting things from the world. It's about emanating a quality of being from within. The question shifts from what can I get to who do I choose to become? From goals to intentions. The language of the third level was goals. A goal is an external destination on the map of material reality, a place the ego wants to reach in order to finally feel validated and at peace. The language of the fourth level is intentions, and an intention is radically different. It's not an external destination, it's a quality of being you choose to embody in the present moment. A goal says, I want to earn $1 million. An intention says, I choose to be a channel of abundance and value and to embody financial freedom. A goal says, I want to find a partner. An intention says, I choose to embody wholeness and self-love and to attract a relationship that mirrors that back to me. See the difference? The goal is conditional and future-oriented. The intention is unconditional and anchored in now. The goal locates happiness in the result. The intention discovers it in the process itself. The three elements of mastery. A powerful intention is built from three precise elements: clarity, emotion, and surrender. Clarity is the what. Your intention must be crystalline. The universe doesn't respond to vague signals. You must get quiet, genuinely quiet, and listen to what your soul actually wants. Not what you think you should want, not what looks impressive, what genuinely calls to you. This isn't willpower, it's listening, turning down the volume of the world long enough to hear the whisper of your authentic nature. Emotion is the why. Goals at the third level are often fueled by fear, fear of scarcity, fear of not being enough, fear of falling behind. Intentions at the fourth level are powered by soul-level emotions: love, joy, creativity, service, genuine growth. You examine your intention and keep asking why until you reach the deepest root feeling. And you discover the true intention is rarely the surface desire. The true intention is the feeling state that the surface desire is trying to reach. When you align your intention with that soul-level emotion, you connect it to an inexhaustible source of energy. Surrender is the how, or more precisely, the willingness to release it. This is the quantum leap that distinguishes the achiever from the conscious creator. The achiever is obsessed with the how, Detailed plans, contingencies, control. Security resides in the plan. The Creator understands. The how is not your domain. It belongs to the intelligence of the universe. Your job is to define the what with clarity, infuse it with authentic emotion, and then release the how with radical trust. This isn't passivity. It's the most sophisticated act of power available at this level. It's recognizing that your conscious mind, with its limited perspective, cannot conceive the miraculous pathways a larger intelligence can arrange. When reality begins to respond, when you start operating from this fourth level, something that feels almost magical begins to happen. Synchronicities arrive. You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they call that day. You need a specific answer, and the exact book falls off the shelf. You set an intention to find a mentor, and the next day you're seated next to precisely the right person. For those living in the lower levels, these are coincidences, random chance. For the initiate at the fourth level, they're confirmation. They're the universe's language, evidence that your signal has been received and reality is organizing itself in response. The daily practice, the intentionality journal. Each morning, instead of creating a to-do list, the conscious creator asks a single foundational question. Who do I choose to be today? Not what roles you'll play, not what tasks you'll complete, what quality of being. Today, I choose to be peace. Today, I intend to be a channel for creativity. Today, I choose to see wholeness in everyone I encounter. You write this intention, and then you spend several minutes feeling it in your body, sensing what a day lived from that quality would actually look and feel like. You're not planning actions. You're establishing a state of being, trusting that aligned actions will arise naturally from that foundation. The portal. The consciousness of intention is the great portal. It's the moment you reclaim your power in the only place it has ever actually existed, the present moment. It's the floor where you stop being a victim of circumstance. Stop being a warrior battling reality. Stop being an achiever desperately proving worth, and start being a conscious creator of your own experience. If you're beginning to feel the shift from external goals to internal intentions, if something in this chapter has moved from your mind into your body, leave the number 777 in the comments below. In many wisdom traditions, 777 represents spiritual awakening, the alignment of thought, emotion, and action. The moment inner and outer reality begin to harmonize. Let this community witness your crossing of the equator. Part 3. The Upper Floors. Chapter 5. The River. The fifth level. To understand what happens at this level, I need you to imagine something with me. Imagine life as a powerful river, not a gentle stream, but a mighty current with its own intelligence, its own direction, flowing inevitably toward the ocean of wholeness. At the first level, the victim is drowning in that river, gasping for air, battered by rocks they can't see coming, terrified of currents they can't understand. At the second level, the warrior climbs into a small boat and rows with every ounce of strength they possess, against the current, trying to impose their own direction. Their experience is heroic, exhausting, and ultimately unsustainable. At the third level, the achiever builds a motorboat. They apply strategy and technology to navigate. They burn fuel, lots of it, but they reach destinations. They feel a sense of control, but they rarely find peace in the journey. At the fourth level, the person of intention finally turns off the motor. They've set their destination. They're beginning to respect the river's intelligence. They're learning to trust. But at the fifth level, something radical happens. They release the oars entirely. They stand up in their vessel, balanced and calm, and they learn to work with a single subtle instrument, a small, responsive rudder. And that rudder is their intuition. They stop trying to force their path. Instead, they use the refined guidance of their inner compass to navigate the powerful current, allowing the immense force of life itself to carry them effortlessly toward their destination. Welcome to the consciousness of flow, the true meaning of surrender. The key word at this level is surrender. And I can already feel your resistance to that word because we've been conditioned to equate surrender with defeat, with weakness, with giving up. But the surrender of the fifth level is not the passive collapse of the victim who simply stopped trying. It's an active, conscious, supremely intelligent surrender. In the ancient Eastern traditions, they call it wu-wei, effortless action, or action through non-action. It means ceasing to be the originator of action and becoming instead the channel through which action flows. It's radical trust born from a deep recognition that the river of life is intelligent, that it's fundamentally benevolent, that it knows where it's going better than your thinkish mind ever could. This is the end of the ego's arrogance, the belief that you, as a separate small self, must plan and control every dimension of your existence. It's the humility of recognizing you're part of something vastly larger, and that by aligning with its flow, you access a power and wisdom your rational mind could never independently conceive. And it's the end of resistance. Listen carefully. All human suffering, without exception, originates from resistance to what is. When you argue with the present moment, when you demand reality conform to your preferences, you generate friction. That friction manifests as stress, anxiety, tension in the body, turmoil in the mind. The master of flow doesn't resist the present. They meet it completely, not with resignation, but with wisdom, understanding that every stretch of the river, even the rapids, even the rocks, is a necessary part of the journey. When flow becomes your life, there's a researcher named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who spent decades studying what he called flow states, those moments of total immersion where time distorts, the sense of separate self dissolves, and you become one with whatever you're doing. Athletes call it the zone. Artists call it the muse. Mystics call it union. Most people experience flow occasionally, accidentally, during specific activities. At the fifth level of consciousness, flow stops being an occasional experience. It becomes the fundamental quality of life itself. Intuition as your primary navigation system. At this level, intuition is no longer an occasional hunch you sometimes get and sometimes ignore. It becomes a constant bodily knowing, a felt sense of which decision moves with the current and which moves against it. You stop making choices exclusively through rational analysis, weighing pros and cons, making lists, calculating probabilities. You begin navigating through an inner instrument that's considerably more sophisticated than logic alone. You ask your body, does this feel light and open and expansive like a current flowing toward something real? Or does it feel heavy, contracted, forced, like pushing against the river? And you've learned, through sustained practice, to trust those physical sensations more than the often deceptive arguments of the thinking mind. Synchronicity as your language. Remember those synchronicities we talked about at the fourth level? The meaningful coincidences that felt magical and rare. At the fifth level, they become ordinary. They're the signs along the riverbank confirming you're moving in the right direction. You stop being surprised by them and start reading them like a native language. The universe communicating constantly through the apparently random arrangement of events. The great paradox. Here's the paradox that defines this level. The more desperately you try to control life, the more control escapes you. When you force outcomes, when you grip tightly, when you resist the natural rhythm of things, you fall out of alignment with the very current that could carry you where you want to go. True sovereignty, real power, isn't born from forcing the river to follow your chosen path. It's born from becoming so skilled a navigator that you use the river's own momentum. And often, you're carried along paths more beautiful and efficient than anything you could have planned. The morning practice of alignment. The master of flow doesn't wake up and immediately create a battle plan for the day. They begin with an act of alignment. Their internal prayer each morning is some version of this. Today, I surrender to the intelligence that moves through all things. Use me as a channel for your purpose. Show me the path of least resistance. I'm open and willing to follow wherever genuine alignment leads. This consecration shifts the entire energy of the day. It's no longer a day of combat. It's a day of co-creation. Throughout the day, they use the body as a compass. Faced with any decision, they pause and ask, not what does my mind calculate? What does this feel like in my body? They've learned to trust the wisdom encoded in physical sensations more than the elaborate justifications of the ego. The inspired know. And perhaps most importantly, the master of flow has become a skilled practitioner of what I call the inspired know. Living in flow isn't passive agreement with everything life presents. It's precisely the opposite. It's the art of saying no to nearly everything in order to preserve the energy and attention required to say a full, resonant, embodied yes to the rare opportunities that are genuinely aligned. They become careful guardians of their energy. Each yes given to a forced or misaligned opportunity costs currency they cannot recover. So they wait, calmly, without anxiety, for the opportunities that feel in every cell of their body like an absolute yes. The dissolution of war, the consciousness of flow, is the dissolution of the war between the individual self and the universe. It's the discovery that you're not a solitary navigator fighting an indifferent ocean. You are a conscious expression of the current itself. The river and the one navigating it are not two separate things. They're one movement, one intelligence, experiencing itself from infinite perspectives. And when you truly understand this, when you feel it not just conceptually but cellularly, something remarkable happens. Fear doesn't disappear entirely, but it loses its grip, because you recognize that even when the river takes you through rapids, even when you can't see around the bend, you're being carried by something that has never once abandoned you. You are the river, dreaming it's a separate drop of water, slowly remembering what it's always been. Chapter 6, The Web, the sixth level. We've arrived at something that will either sound completely abstract or utterly self-evident, depending on whether you've experienced it directly. At the sixth level, the most fundamental illusion of all begins to dissolve, the illusion of separation. From the moment you were born, you've been conditioned to define yourself through boundaries. This is my body. That is yours. I am here. The world is out there. My family, my tribe, my beliefs, and then the others. Our entire language, our science, our psychology is built on the premise that we are isolated units, separate consciousnesses navigating through a universe fundamentally alien to us. And from this perception of separation, every fear is born. The fear of loneliness, the fear of death, the fear of scarcity, the fear of the other, all conflict, all competition, all violence, the persistent feeling of being a small, fragile fragment in a vast, indifferent cosmos. All of it arises from this single root illusion. But here's what the mystics, the sages, the truly awakened beings across every culture and every era have always known. Separation doesn't exist. At the deepest level of reality, everything is interconnected, intimately, inextricably, eternally. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean experiencing itself as a drop. Welcome to the consciousness of unity, when science meets mysticism. For thousands of years, this understanding was the territory of spiritual experience alone, something you had to take on faith or access through meditation. But something fascinating has happened in the last century. Science has begun catching up with mysticism. Cosmology tells us that 13.8 billion years ago, every particle that composes your body, every galaxy, every star, every atom of everything that exists was unified in a single point of incomprehensible density. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space. It was the expansion of space itself from that point of primordial unity, which means every particle of your being shares a common origin with the most distant star visible from Earth. You are, in the most literal sense, made of the same substance as the cosmos. The experience of separation is an artifact of time and scale, not ultimate reality. Biology shows us we're not isolated entities, but walking ecosystems. Trillions of microorganisms live in and on your body. Without them, fundamental processes would be impossible. You couldn't digest food. You couldn't fight disease. You couldn't exist. The boundary between you and not you is far more porous than you've been taught to believe. And quantum physics? It offers perhaps the most mind-bending confirmation of all. Quantum entanglement demonstrates that particles once connected remain linked regardless of distance. Measure one, and you instantaneously affect its partner, even if they are separated by the width of the universe. This violates every classical assumption about space, time, and the independence of objects. And it points toward a truth the rational mind struggles to accommodate. At the deepest level accessible to scientific investigation, the universe functions as a single, interconnected system. The three awakenings. For most people, this understanding doesn't arrive as an intellectual proposition. It arrives as direct experience, as a series of awakenings that dissolve, even briefly, the perceived boundaries of the self. The first awakening, unity with nature. This often happens in moments of profound contact with the living earth. Standing breathless before a mountain range, sitting in silence beside the ocean, your breath synchronizing with the rhythm of the waves, walking through an ancient forest where the air itself feels alive. In those moments, something shifts. The ego's constant commentary ceases. The sense of being a separate observer looking at nature dissolves. There's only being. You don't feel like you're visiting nature. You recognize unmistakably that you are nature, temporarily concentrated into a particular focal point of awareness. The trees are breathing for you, you are breathing for them. There is no separation. There never was. The second awakening, unity with humanity. In the lower levels of consciousness, your relationship with others is structured by duality. Friend or enemy. Us or them. Source of pleasure or source of threat. At a sixth level, something profound shifts in how you perceive another person, even someone you're in conflict with. Someone whose beliefs seem diametrically opposed to yours. Someone who has hurt you. You look into their eyes, and beneath the surface features of their personality and their story, you begin to recognize something. The same quality of awareness you find within yourself. Their narrative is different. Their wounds are different. Their beliefs are different. But the consciousness witnessing their life, the silent, experiencing awareness behind their eyes, is identical in nature to the one behind your own. From this recognition, genuine judgment becomes impossible, not as a moral performance, not as spiritual discipline, simply as a natural consequence of perception. How can you harbor contempt for another if, at their deepest level, they are you in a different form? This is the actual meaning of the word namaste. The consciousness in me acknowledges the consciousness in you, and you begin to understand viscerally, cellularly, that causing harm to another is, in any meaningful sense, a form of self-harm. The third awakening, unity with Source. This is the full, though often temporary, dissolution of the sense of separate self. The moment when the drop of water, after its long individual journey, returns to the ocean and recognizes it was never truly separate from it. In this state, there is no longer a you experiencing the universe. There is only the universe experiencing itself through and as what you are, pure consciousness, without form, without attributes, without story. The end of all searching, because what you've been seeking is revealed as what you've always already been. This experience may last seconds, maybe minutes if you're fortunate, but once you've lived it, even once, it permanently alters the architecture of yourself. The belief in fundamental separation is revealed with quiet humor as the great cosmic misunderstanding. And even when you return to inhabiting your personal identity, you carry within it a new lightness, a silent certainty that your true nature is as vast as the cosmos from which it arose. The trap of spiritual ego. Even at this elevated level, the ego demonstrates its extraordinary capacity for survival. There's a trap waiting here, the trap of what we might call the spiritual ego. This is the part of you that takes the experience of unity and converts it into a new, more sophisticated identity, a badge of attainment, the voice that whispers, "I've accessed something others haven't. I understand what most people don't. I've reached a level beyond the ordinary." This is perhaps the subtlest and most dangerous veil of all, precisely because it's woven from genuine insight. The spiritual ego can generate a refined condescension toward those still in the lower levels. It can create attachment to elevated states, becoming addicted to mystical experiences and judging spiritual progress by their frequency, rather than by the quality of ordinary presence. And in its most corrosive form, it produces what's called spiritual bypassing. The use of absolute truth to avoid relative responsibilities. It's all an illusion anyway becomes an excuse to neglect your health, your relationships, your impact on others. The genuine sign that unity consciousness has been integrated isn't the capacity to generate extraordinary experiences. It's an increase in humility, an expansion of compassion, a quieter, more persistent quality of service. It's the dissolution of personal importance within the vast, inexhaustible mystery of being. The practice, dissolving boundaries. The central practice of this level is a meditation of dissolving boundaries. Sit comfortably, close your eyes. Follow the journey of your breath with full attention. Recognize that on the inhalation, you're drawing the outside world into yourself. On the exhalation, you're releasing yourself back into the outside world. In the simple, continuous dance of breathing, the absolute boundary between inner and outer dissolves, moment by moment. Then extend this awareness. Sit with your back against a tree. Practice feeling the roots extending into the same earth that sustains the tree. Your spine as still and solid as the trunk. Your arms reaching like branches toward light. The tree and you are not two separate things. You're two expressions of the same upward movement, the same life, the just like me recognition. To cultivate compassion, not as effort, but as natural perception, practice what I call the just like me recognition. When someone generates irritation or harsh judgment in you, pause. In the silence of your awareness, move through these recognitions. Just like me, this person is seeking happiness. Just like me, this person has experienced suffering and loss. Just like me, this person is doing the best they can from the level of consciousness available to them in this moment. This simple, repeated act dismantles the illusion of the other as adversary, and it opens the heart to the space where genuine healing becomes not only possible, but, over time, inevitable. The great homecoming. The consciousness of unity is the great homecoming, the end of essential loneliness, the discovery that love is not a thing to be given or received from outside yourself. Love is the very fabric from which existence is woven. You are not seeking love. You are love, seeking to recognize itself in the face of every being you encounter. And once you know this, truly know it, not as philosophy but as lived experience, the entire world becomes a mirror reflecting your own face back to you. If this chapter has opened something in you, if you're beginning to feel the walls between self and other becoming translucent, leave the number 108 in the comments below. In many spiritual traditions, 108 represents completion, the full circle, the recognition of wholeness. Let this be your signal that the separation was always the dream and unity was always the truth. Chapter 7. The Ground, the 7th Level, Part 1. We've climbed 6 floors. From the darkness of the basement where life happens to you, through the battlefields and boardrooms of external achievement, across the threshold into conscious creation and flow, and into the recognition of fundamental interconnectedness. But now, we're going to take the final step, and it's not a step upward, it's a step inward, a dissolution toward the center, a return to the origin. Welcome to the 7th level, the level that is simultaneously the foundation of all the others and their ultimate culmination. Welcome to the consciousness of being, the question that changes everything. Throughout this entire journey, we've been focused on the contents of consciousness, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, perceptions. We've learned to observe them, transform them, align them. But now we're going to do something different. We're going to withdraw attention from the content entirely and place it on the container. We're going to explore the nature of consciousness itself. This is the inquiry at the heart of every genuine spiritual path. The question the sages have carried for millennia. Who am I? Not who do I think I am. Not who have I been told I am. Not what roles I play or achievements I've accumulated. Who am I at the most fundamental level? Let's investigate together. Are you your body? Consider it honestly. You say my body in precisely the same way you say my car or my house. There's an awareness that possesses and observes the body. The body changes constantly. It ages. It heals. Cells die and regenerate. The body you inhabit today is not the same body you inhabited 10 years ago. But the consciousness witnessing these changes has remained throughout your entire life, essentially constant. The body cannot be what you are. You are the awareness that inhabits and experiences it. Are you your thoughts? This is the most common identification. We believe ourselves to be the voice in our heads, the narrator, the thinker. But if you can observe your thoughts, if you can watch them arise and dissolve like clouds passing through the sky, then by the fundamental logic of observation, you cannot be them. The observer is always distinct from the observed. Thoughts are weather moving through the space of awareness. You are not the weather. You are the sky. Are you your emotions? We say, I am angry. I am joyful, fusing identity with the emotional state of the moment. But emotions are waves of energy. Yesterday's anger has dissolved. Last month's joy is now memory. Emotions are storms and sunshine moving through awareness. They shift constantly. The awareness that notices both the storm and the calm remains. You are not the weather. You are the space in which weather occurs. Are you your story? We identify with the narrative we've constructed, the character we've been playing. Parent, professional, survivor, success, failure. But these are costumes placed upon something that existed before them. The consciousness that experienced childhood decades ago is the identical consciousness reading these words now. The characters have evolved. The story has changed. The awareness animating it has not. What remains when this deconstruction is pursued with genuine rigor, when you refuse to identify with anything observable, anything impermanent? What remains? At first, the logical mind experiences something like panic. It appears you're moving toward emptiness, toward annihilation. In one sense, you are. But it's not a void of destruction. It's a fertile void, the silence from which all music is born. What remains is pure consciousness, the simple, luminous, unadorned feeling of existing, the presence of I am before any addition, any qualification, any story. Not I am this, not I am that. Simply, I am. This is the seventh level. Part 4. The Integration and the Return. Chapter 7. The Ground, the Seventh Level. Continuation. The Qualities of Pure Being. This state of pure consciousness, this I am that remains when everything else is stripped away, carries several unmistakable qualities. It is formless and beyond time. Pure consciousness has no physical form, no age, no geographical location. It was not born when your body was born. It will not die when your body dies. The consciousness looking through your eyes right now is the same consciousness that looked through the eyes of the child you once were, wide-eyed, amazed, encountering the world for the first time. It's the only constant in a life composed entirely of change, the immutable screen upon which the ever-moving images of your existence are projected. Its inherent nature is peace, the undisturbed quality of pure consciousness, when it's not actively identified with the drama of thought and emotion, is a deep, unconditional peace. Not a peace you must construct or earn, a peace you uncover by recognizing it's been present beneath the noise the entire time. When you stop creating conflict with the present moment, stop arguing with what is, the peace that is your nature becomes accessible. It was never absent, only obscured. It is the source from which creation originates. Pure consciousness, this I am, is not a passive observer with no creative function. It's the very substance of reality itself, the quantum field of infinite potential, the light of the projector from which the entire movie of your experience is cast. When you identify with the wave, the personality, the ego, the story, you experience yourself as small, separate, at the mercy of forces beyond your control. When you remember your true identity as the ocean, as consciousness itself, you reclaim an inherent creative power that no external circumstance can remove. Living from the seventh level. To live from the seventh level is not to become detached from human experience. It's to inhabit it fully for the first time. Problems don't disappear, but they're seen from a different vantage point. From the perspective of the silent witness, a problem is not a threat. It's a situation, met not with the anxious resistance of the ego, but with the calm intelligence of the self. The energy once consumed by worry is liberated for genuine resolution. The fear of death, the ego's deepest and most governing terror, loses its grip. When you recognize that your essential identity is not the wave, but the ocean, the transience of form no longer generates existential dread. The body will age. The personality will evolve. This particular configuration of consciousness will eventually dissolve back into the formless. But the consciousness you are is not temporary. This recognition doesn't produce recklessness. It produces a quiet, pervasive courage, freedom to live more fully, to love without the perpetual contraction of self-protection, to express your truth without the paralyzing fear of loss. The I Am meditation, the central practice of the sage, is what I call the I Am meditation, not a meditation aimed at calming the mind. That's a goal arising from conflict. A meditation aimed at remembering the truth of what you already are. In silence, close your eyes. With each inhalation, gently introduce the internal syllable I. With each exhalation, the syllable am. Not I am strong, not I am peaceful, not I am worthy. Simply I am. Allow your attention to rest in this bare, naked feeling of existing, the awareness that is present before any label, before any story, before any role. This is home. And meditation, practiced this way, is the daily act of returning. The inquiry throughout your day, when the old habit of identification attempts to arise, when a wave of emotion or cascade of thought tries to define what you are, employ the inquiry of the great teacher Ramana Maharshi. Ask inwardly, with genuine curiosity, who is aware of this? The question doesn't seek an intellectual answer. It's a pointer. Its only function is to redirect attention from the content, the anger, the fear, the thought, to the awareness observing it. This simple act of reorientation, practiced repeatedly, becomes the fastest and most reliable return to the ground of self. The ultimate freedom, the seventh level, is not an achievement. It's a recognition. You don't become pure consciousness. You realize you've always been it. The entire journey, all 7 levels, has been consciousness exploring itself, forgetting itself, and gradually remembering what it never actually stopped being. The basement, the battlefields, the boardrooms, the awakenings, all of it was the ocean pretending to be separate waves, playing the game of forgetting so it could experience the joy of remembering. And now you know. Chapter 8, The Workshop, Conscious Creation in Practice. Now we descend from the summit of pure being and enter the practical domain, because understanding the map is not the same as walking it. Knowledge that doesn't translate into practice is merely philosophy, and philosophy, no matter how beautiful, doesn't change lives. Action does. Practice does. The daily choice to embody what you've understood. So let's talk about the workshop, the place where you take everything you've learned and forge it into a life. The 3 preparatory disciplines. Before you can consciously create anything, before you can effectively work with intention, flow, or conscious manifestation, you must first establish the right inner state. The master of inner state begins with 3 preparatory disciplines: centering, purification, and attunement. Discipline 1, centering. Centering is the act of anchoring consciousness in the calm eye of the internal hurricane. Your nervous system, if left to its default settings, operates in reactive mode. Stimulus, response. Trigger, reaction. Someone says something, you feel something, you do something. No space between, no conscious choice. Centering creates that space. The fastest way to center is through breath. Not ordinary breathing, but deliberate physiological intervention. The physiological sigh, a deep inhale through the nose, followed by a second, shorter inhale to fully expand the lungs, then a long, slow exhale through the mouth. This pattern, discovered by researchers studying stress responses, immediately shifts your nervous system from sympathetic activation, fight or flight, to parasympathetic dominance, rest and digest. 2 or 3 of these sighs, done with full attention, will bring you from reactive chaos to receptive presence in less than a minute. Practice this before any significant decision, before any important conversation, before setting intentions, before beginning your day. You cannot create consciously from a state of inner chaos. The signal you broadcast when you're anxious, scattered, overwhelmed is a signal of lack. And that's what the mirror of reality reflects back to you. Center first, always. Discipline 2, purification. Purification is the honest examination and clearing of the emotional climate within. You cannot create from a foundation of accumulated resentment, unexpressed anger, or unprocessed grief. These emotions, when suppressed or ignored, become energetic blockages, static in the signal you're broadcasting. The practice of purification has 2 components. First, radical forgiveness. Make a list of every person you're still carrying resentment toward, every situation you haven't fully made peace with, every version of yourself you're still judging. And then, one by one, practice the forgiveness protocol. Not for them, for you. Because holding resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't hurt them, it corrodes you. The protocol is simple. I forgive name for specific action, and I release them from my heart. I reclaim my energy. I choose peace. Say it aloud. Feel it in your body. You may need to repeat it many times before the emotional charge releases. That's normal. The deeper the wound, the longer the healing. Second, real-time alchemy. When difficult emotions arise in the moment, anger, fear, sadness, shame, don't suppress them. Don't indulge them. Transform them. The alchemical process has 4 steps, remembered by the acronym RAIN. Recognize, name what you're feeling. This is anger. This is fear. Accept, allow it to be present without judgment. It's okay that this is here. Investigate. Get curious. What is this emotion trying to protect me from? What belief is underneath it? Non-identification. Remember that you are not the emotion. You are the space in which it's occurring. I am not the storm. I am the sky. This process, practiced in real time, prevents emotional accumulation. You process as you go rather than building up years of unmetabolized experience. Discipline 3. Attunement. Attunement is the deliberate elevation of your inner frequency through gratitude. Gratitude is not a nicety. It's not positive thinking. It's one of the highest vibrational states available to human consciousness. When you're in genuine gratitude, you cannot simultaneously be in fear, lack, or resentment. They occupy different frequencies. Gratitude displaces lower states naturally, effortlessly. The practice: every morning before you engage with the external world, write down 10 things you're genuinely grateful for. Not performative gratitude, not "I should be grateful for this." Real, felt appreciation. The air in your lungs, the roof over your head, the person you love, the challenge teaching you resilience, the stranger who smiled at you yesterday, the body that carries you through the world, the consciousness that allows you to experience any of this. Feel each one as you write it. Let the feeling fill your chest. Let it flood your nervous system. You're not doing this to manipulate the universe. You're doing it because gratitude attunes your entire being to the frequency of abundance, and abundance recognizes itself. From this prepared inner state, centered, purified, attuned, the art of deliberate creation becomes available. The art of deliberate projection. Now we work with 2 great instruments, the decree and the vision. The first instrument, the decree. A decree is not a wish. It's not a hope. It's not a request. It's a command issued from the throne of your sovereign consciousness to the kingdom of your subconscious mind. Your subconscious doesn't evaluate or judge. It accepts and executes. Whatever you declare with emotional conviction and repetition becomes the program it runs. But here's what most people get wrong. They recite generic affirmations that have no personal resonance, words copied from someone else's journey, phrases that sound good but don't touch the actual core of their being. Your decrees must be forged from the material of your own soul. The most powerful form of decree begins with I am, because I am is not just a statement. It's the name of the divine creative power within you. It's the same force that spoke existence into being. When you say I am, you're not describing yourself. You're defining yourself. You're commanding reality to conform to your declaration. But these must be spoken aloud, to your own reflection, looking into your own eyes, not to convince yourself, to remind yourself of what you've chosen to be true. Examples: I am a channel of boundless creativity and value. I am magnetic to relationships that honor and elevate me. I am financially free, and abundance flows to me effortlessly. I am healthy, vital, and fully alive in this body. Notice, these are present tense, Not I will be, not I want to be. I am already, now, in this moment. Because the subconscious doesn't operate in future tense. It operates in present truth. You must embody the state now for it to manifest later. Speak your decrees every morning into the mirror with full attention, with emotional conviction, until they stop feeling like aspirations and start feeling like remembering. The second instrument, the vision. Visualization is not daydreaming. It's not idle fantasy. Done correctly, it's the most powerful tool for imprinting new realities into the subconscious mind and the quantum field. But most people visualize from anxiety. They rehearse the process. They imagine themselves working hard, struggling, eventually succeeding. And in doing so, they reinforce the belief that success requires struggle. That's not visualization. That's mental rehearsal of the old pattern. True visualization is living in the end. It's inhabiting the fulfilled reality with such multi-sensory detail that your nervous system cannot distinguish it from actual experience. Here's how it works. Close your eyes. Center yourself with breath, and then step into the scene where your intention has already manifested. Not the process, not the journey, the arrival. If your intention is financial freedom, don't visualize yourself working to earn money. Visualize yourself in a moment where that freedom is already real. Waking up without alarm, checking your account and feeling calm abundance. Making a decision based purely on joy, not necessity. If your intention is a deeply connected relationship, don't visualize yourself searching for a partner. Visualize yourself in a quiet evening with them, the feeling of being seen, the ease of being together, the warmth in your chest. Engage all 5 senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What textures do you feel? What emotions are present in your body? Live in that scene for 5 to 10 minutes, not as observer, but as participant. Let your nervous system experience it as real. Here's why this works. Your subconscious mind and your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and an actual one. They respond identically. When you repeatedly immerse yourself in the fulfilled state, you're training your entire being to recognize that reality as familiar, as home. And the quantum field, which responds to your vibrational state, begins organizing circumstances to match the frequency you're emanating. You're not manipulating reality, you're aligning with it. The integration practice. Here's how these instruments work together in daily practice. Morning, center with breath, 2 minutes. Write 10 gratitudes, 3 minutes. Speak your decrees to the mirror, 5 minutes. Visualize the fulfilled state, 10 minutes. Ask, who do I choose to be today? 2 minutes. Total time, 22 minutes. Less than 1 episode of a television show. And it will change the entire trajectory of your life. Throughout the day, when decision points arise, pause and check in with your body. Does this align with the person I declared myself to be this morning? When obstacles appear, ask, what is this teaching me? How is this serving my growth? When you notice yourself slipping into old patterns, use RAIN to process the emotion and return to center. Evening. Journal on the day. What aligned? What didn't? Where did you stay conscious? Where did you drop into autopilot? Forgive yourself for wherever you fell short. Tomorrow is a new canvas. This is the workshop. Not mystical, not complex, just consistent, honest, daily practice. Chapter 9. The Lighthouse Effect. Now we need to talk about something most teachings on consciousness completely miss: the ripple effect. When you've done the inner work we've been discussing, when you've stabilized at the higher levels of consciousness, you don't just change your own life. You become a field, a frequency, an energetic influence on everything and everyone around you. Without trying, without preaching, without needing anyone to change, you become a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't chase after ships lost in the storm. It doesn't shout directions. It doesn't judge those who ignore its beam. It simply tends its own flame with unwavering consistency, and those who are ready find their way by its light. The three radiations: a genuinely stabilized consciousness radiates three qualities that affect the environment: peace, clarity, and possibility. The radiation of peace. A nervous system that has cultivated genuine inner stillness creates a coherent electromagnetic field. Yes, electromagnetic. Your heart generates an electrical field that extends several feet beyond your body. This isn't mysticism. It's measurable with an electrocardiogram. When your nervous system is calm, coherent, and grounded, other nervous systems in proximity can detect and attune to that frequency. It's called limbic resonance. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the tension even though no one was speaking? Or entered someone's presence and felt inexplicably at ease? That's not imagination. That's your nervous system reading theirs. When you embody peace, you give others permission, subconscious, nonverbal permission, to do the same. You don't have to say anything. Your presence says it. The radiation of clarity. A mind operating from genuine purpose generates a quality of focused coherence. When you know who you are and what you're about, not as a performance but as a lived truth, people around you feel that certainty. It helps them organize their own scattered thinking. Have you noticed how being around someone with clear vision makes you feel more focused? How conversation with someone grounded in their purpose helps you clarify your own? That's the radiation of clarity. It's contagious in the best possible way. The radiation of possibility. This is the most powerful of the three. A life being lived from the higher levels of consciousness is the most compelling argument available that another way is genuinely accessible, not preached, embodied. When people see you navigating challenges with calm instead of panic, responding to difficulty with curiosity instead of blame, creating results from alignment instead of force, something in them awakens. Not because you told them to change, because you showed them it's possible. You become living proof that the map is real, that the levels exist, that the journey can be walked. The responsibility of the lighthouse. With this understanding comes responsibility. You cannot control whether others choose to see your light. You cannot force anyone to climb. You cannot drag people up the staircase against their will, but you can tend your flame. You can refuse to dim yourself to make others comfortable with their darkness. You can hold the frequency even when everyone around you is operating from a lower one. This doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean superiority. It means steadiness. It means being the calm in the center of the storm, the grounded presence in the chaos, the person who remembers the truth even when everyone else has forgotten. And sometimes, often without you even knowing, someone watching from a distance will see what's possible in you and decide to begin their own climb. That's the lighthouse effect. Your transformation is never just yours. It ripples outward in ways you'll never fully see. So when you do this work, when you commit to the practice, when you stabilize at higher consciousness, you're not just changing your life. You're changing the collective field. You're raising the frequency of everyone your life touches. And that, my friend, is sacred work. Chapter 10, Living at the Peak, the Integration of All 7 Levels. We've reached the summit of understanding, but here's the secret most spiritual teachings don't tell you, the secret that actually matters. The goal was never to permanently occupy the uppermost floor. The real mastery is this: recognizing that all 7 levels exist within you simultaneously, always, and learning to access each one consciously, choosing from which level you respond to any given moment. Because here's the truth: every level has value. Every floor offers something necessary. When the victim serves you, yes, even victim consciousness has its place. When you've experienced genuine trauma, genuine violation, genuine powerlessness, acknowledging that reality is not weakness, it's honesty. The danger is living there permanently. But there's wisdom in knowing when to say, "This was not my fault. This happened to me, and I need support to heal from it." The awakened person can visit the basement when necessary, speak its language when appropriate, and then consciously choose to climb back up. When the warrior serves you, there are moments when discipline is exactly what's required, when you need to push through resistance, when the obstacle genuinely does need to be met with force. The awakened person knows when to put on the armor, pick up the sword, and fight. Not as their default mode, but as a conscious choice. The difference is, they know when to set it down again. When the achiever serves you goals, plans, strategies, optimization, these aren't enemies of consciousness. They're tools. The awakened person uses them, but they're not used by them. They can create a meticulous plan when the situation calls for it. They can measure, track, optimize. And then, when flow calls for spontaneity, they can release the plan entirely without anxiety. They know the difference between the map and the territory. And they know when to follow the map and when to trust the compass. When intention, flow, unity, and being serve you, these higher levels become your home base, the floors you return to most often, the default state from which you navigate life. But even here, there's integration. Sometimes intention is what's needed, clear, focused, deliberate creation. Sometimes flow is what's needed, surrender, trust, allowing the current to carry you. Sometimes unity consciousness is what's needed, seeing the interconnection, feeling the compassion, recognizing yourself and the other. And sometimes pure being is what's needed, resting in awareness itself, doing nothing, being everything. The 3 jewels of integration. To live at the peak while integrating all 7 levels is to embody 3 qualities we'll call the 3 jewels. The first jewel, effortless action. This is the capacity to respond to each moment from genuine inner stillness, rather than anxious planning. You act when action is required. You rest when rest is required. You speak when speaking serves. You're silent when silence serves, not because you're following a rule, because you've learned to hear the whisper of alignment and trust it. Effortless doesn't mean easy. It means action that arises from alignment rather than force. And paradoxically, aligned action often accomplishes more with less effort than forced action ever could. The second jewel, unconditional peace. This is the discovery of a stability that doesn't depend on external circumstances being favorable. Your peace is no longer held hostage by whether things are going well. You found the ground beneath the ground, the unshakable foundation of pure awareness. Bad things still happen. Challenges still arise. Loss still visits. But they no longer have the power to fundamentally disturb your center. You can be sad without being destroyed, disappointed without being defeated, challenged without being shaken, because your identity is no longer tethered to outcomes. The third jewel, divine play. This is the recognition that existence itself is the creative expression of an intelligence operating from joy, not gravity. Life is serious, and it's also a game, a cosmic play, a divine expression exploring itself through infinite forms. When you understand this, you stop taking yourself so seriously. The ego's grip loosens. Humor returns. Lightness infuses even the heavy moments. You participate fully in the drama of being human, but you also hold it all a bit more lightly. Because you remember, this is consciousness playing dress-up, temporarily forgetting what it is so it can experience the joy of remembering. The forbidden secret, and now, the final secret, the one that's truly forbidden because it undermines the entire structure of spiritual seeking. You don't have to reach the 7th level to be whole. You were always whole. You are whole right now, exactly as you are, at whatever level you currently inhabit. The journey through the 7 levels isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about remembering what you've always been. The basement, the battlefields, the boardrooms, the awakenings, all of it is consciousness exploring itself. And every exploration, every level, every stumble, and every breakthrough is valuable. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. You're not incomplete. You're the infinite pretending very convincingly to be finite. You're the eternal playing at being temporary. You're the ocean dreaming it's a wave. And the entire journey, this entire map, is just the ocean's way of remembering itself. So yes, climb, practice, integrate, grow, expand into higher and higher levels of consciousness. But also, right now, in this moment, know this. You are already what you seek. The staircase is real. The levels are real. The transformation is real, and so is your completeness, exactly as you are. Both truths coexist. The journey and the arrival. The climbing and the recognition that you never left home. This is the paradox at the heart of all genuine spiritual understanding, and it's beautiful. Chapter 11. The question that determines everything. So here we are. You have the complete map, all 7 levels, the practices, the pitfalls, the portals, the secret at the center of it all. And now comes the only question that actually matters. What are you going to do with this? Because here's what I know about human nature, what I know from walking this path myself and watching thousands of others walk it. Right now, you're inspired. You're feeling the clarity, the possibility, the sense that, yes, this is real, this is true, this is what I've been looking for. And that inspiration is valuable. It's the spark, the initial momentum. But inspiration is not transformation. Inspiration is what you feel right now. Transformation is what remains after the inspiration fades. And it will fade. Not because the truth becomes less true, but because the default patterns of consciousness are extraordinarily persistent. Tomorrow or next week or next month, you'll wake up and the old patterns will be right there waiting. The victim's voice, the warrior's exhaustion, the achiever's anxiety, all of it, familiar and seductive, inviting you back down to the lower floors. And in that moment, you'll have a choice. You can tell yourself you'll get back to the practice later, when you have more time, when things settle down, when life gets easier. This is the choice that leads back to the basement. Or you can remember this moment, this understanding, this map, and you can ask the single question that changes everything. From what level of consciousness do I choose to respond to this? That question is the practice. That pause is the work. That conscious choice is where transformation actually happens. Not in the peak moments, not in the inspired states. In the ordinary moments when no one is watching and the familiar pattern is pulling and you choose differently anyway. That's where the real climb occurs. The resistance will come. Let me be brutally honest with you about what happens when you commit to this path. Your life will start to change, and change, even positive change, creates friction. The people around you who are comfortable with the version of you that operates from the lower levels, they might resist your transformation, not because they don't love you, but because your growth highlights their stagnation, and that's uncomfortable. Your own ego will resist, because the ego's survival depends on maintaining the familiar identity. And as you climb, you'll be asked to release identities you've carried for years, maybe decades. That victim story that earned you sympathy, you'll have to let it go. That warrior identity that made you feel strong, you'll have to set down the weapons. That achiever persona that earned you respect, you'll have to stop deriving worth from external validation. Each of these releases will feel temporarily like death, because in a sense they are. The death of who you thought you were to make space for who you actually are. And that process is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's excruciating. But on the other side of each death is a rebirth, a freer, fuller, more authentic version of yourself. So yes, there will be resistance from outside, from inside, from the universe itself, testing whether you're serious about this commitment. And the question in those moments is always the same. Do I return to what's familiar, or do I continue climbing toward what's true? The practice of returning. Here's what mastery actually looks like in real life. It's not never falling back to the lower levels. It's recognizing when you have and choosing to climb again. Quickly, consciously, without judgment. You will have victim days, days when you blame and complain and feel powerless. You will have warrior days, days when you force and push and exhaust yourself. You will have achiever days, days when you're chasing validation and forgetting your wholeness. This is not failure. This is being human. The practice is noticing. I've dropped down to the second floor. I'm in warrior mode, fighting everything. And then choosing, let me climb back up. Let me remember flow. Let me remember I don't have to force this. The practice is the return, over and over. 1,000 small returns over a lifetime. That's the path. That's the real work. Not one grand awakening that solves everything forever. 1,000 quiet choices to remember what you know. The invitation. So let me extend to you the invitation that was once extended to me, not to be perfect, not to reach the 7th level and never descend, not to transcend your humanity, but to be conscious, to see the map, to recognize the levels, and to make the climb one deliberate step at a time for the rest of your life. To commit to the question, from what level of consciousness am I choosing to respond? To commit to the return, I've dropped down, time to climb back up. To commit to the practice, today I choose to be the person my highest self knows I am. This is not a 30-day challenge. It's not a quick fix. It's not a hack. It's a way of life. And if you're willing, truly willing, to walk this path with consistency, with honesty, with the kind of stubborn commitment that refuses to quit even when it's difficult, your life will change in ways you cannot currently imagine. Not just your circumstances, not just your achievements, not just your relationships. Your entire experience of being alive will transform, because you'll be living from a different floor, seeing a different view, breathing different air. And once you've tasted that, once you've experienced life from the upper floors, you can never fully forget. You might drop down, but you'll always know the way back up. The final practice. Before we close, one final practice, the one that ties everything together. Take out your journal one more time and answer these questions with complete honesty. Which level am I primarily operating from right now in my life? What is the cost of staying on this level? What would be available to me one level up? What is the one practice from this teaching that resonated most deeply? What is the smallest action I can take today to begin the climb? Don't overthink it. Just write. Let the answers come from your body, not your analyzing mind. And then, this is crucial, take that smallest action today. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready. Today. Because the universe rewards action. Not intention, not inspiration. Action. Even the smallest step up counts. Even the briefest moment of choosing consciousness over autopilot matters. That's how mountains are climbed. One step at a time. Closing. The moment of choice. We've reached the end of the map, but for you, this is not an ending. It's a beginning. You came here because something in you recognized it was ready. Ready to stop living at a fraction of your capacity. Ready to stop being the victim, the exhausted warrior, the hollow achiever. Ready to remember what you actually are. And now you have the map. The complete architecture of consciousness, all 7 levels, the practices, the pitfalls, the portals. You have everything you need. The only remaining ingredient, the only thing that has ever been required, is choice. Not a one-time choice, a daily, moment-by-moment, renewable choice. The choice to ask the question, the choice to make the climb, the choice to remember. The staircase has always been there. You've always had the capacity. The only thing that ever stopped you was not knowing it existed. Now you know. So the question is no longer, can I climb? The question is, will I? Will you take the first step? Will you ask the question? Will you commit to the practice? Will you choose in this moment and the next and the one after that to live from the highest level of consciousness available to you? The version of yourself that exists at the peak of your potential is already there, already whole, already complete, already free. That version is not something you become. It's something you remember. It's who you've always been, beneath the layers of forgetting. And the journey, this entire magnificent, difficult, beautiful journey, is simply the process of peeling back those layers until you're standing face to face with your own true nature, pure, powerful, eternal, free. That is who you are. That has always been who you are. And now it's time to live like it. The community call. If this journey has changed something real inside you, if you felt the first stirrings of genuine awakening, I want you to mark this moment. Leave the number 1111 in the comments below. In the language of consciousness, 1111 represents the alignment of all levels, the integration of earth and spirit, the moment when you stop seeking outside yourself and recognize the divine within. It's the signal that you've received the map, that you're ready to walk it, that you're choosing consciousness. Let this community witness your choice, and then take the first step. Ask the question, from what level of consciousness am I choosing to respond to this moment? And climb, one conscious choice at a time, one deliberate return at a time, one small step at a time. The staircase is waiting. The higher floors are calling. Your truest self is ready. All that remains is your decision to begin. Thank you. Thank you for your time, for your openness, for the quiet courage it takes to look honestly at yourself and decide you're ready for something more. The map is yours now. The practice is yours. The journey is yours. And I'll tell you one final truth. You're not walking it alone. Thousands have walked it before you. Thousands are walking it alongside you. And thousands more will walk it after you, guided by the light you're about to become. Because that's what happens when you climb. You become a lighthouse, and your light guides others home. So climb, not just for yourself, for everyone your life touches, for the collective consciousness of humanity, which rises one awakened soul at a time. Climb, and let your life be the proof that another way is possible. The journey continues. The map is complete. And now, so are you.